Hello everyone. Hello everyone. I'm so glad to see you all tonight. This is our engagement evening tonight, and it is our third evening this month. Is there anyone who will join all three events? Wow, I think you really care about housing policy. I trust that the issue of housing in Hong Kong is something of everybody's concern. We have organized engagement evening for over a decade. When we first organized this program, we would invite legislators, renowned speakers from the sector, and professionals to share with us. So today we will talk about housing policy, and we are very glad to have invited Mr. Wing-ching Shih to share with us. Is there anything that you would like to brief us all? Speaking of housing, I think everybody concerned. In hindsight, the reason why we organized 3 events on housing in a series is because we would like to have experts to share about housing from different perspectives. How can we reallocate all our resources? How can we further develop private housing, etc.? Actually, we cover all sorts of issues, including poverty, innovation, the 5 major industries in Hong Kong, etc. The reason why we call this an engagement evening is because we believe that engagement and interaction will bring forth change. I trust that people from all walks of life can share their views. They can come to learn or come to contribute. At CDI, we have always been focusing on the public issues. This is what we concern most, as well as the education of public issues. We want to try our best to bring you all onto a platform so that we can exchange. How about Incu-Lab? Well, likewise, Incu-Lab would like to bring forth change through innovation. We want to transform different issues through innovation and technology. We want to see our reformation.
Yeah, very long, yes. Good evening, everyone, and on behalf of Incu-Lab and CDI, welcome to this engagement evening, which is the 3rd in our series on housing. The first 2 focused on public housing. This one focuses more on the private sector. Both of these sectors have their own individual issues, but they are not totally disconnected. And solutions for one may well have unintended consequences for the other. So it's not a simple issue at all. We're very fortunate to have Mr. Wing-ching to come and talk to us tonight, because he must be one of the most authoritative experts on the housing market. And so he's going to share his thoughts with us, and I hope you all are able to take away some useful information from this. I believe there are probably some people here who are very anxious to hear what he forecasts about how the property market is going to go, as to whether they should be investing or disinvesting. So I'm sure he's going to be listened to very intently tonight.
George is the chair of both CDI and Incu-Lab. Well, I think Mr. Wing-ching is a figure that needs introduction no further. He is an expert in the issue of housing. And there are 2 points that we would like to highlight. The reason why we are in conversation with Mr. Shih is because we would talk about people's livelihood, including housing and alleviating poverty, and he concerns about them all. Second, Mr. Shih also supports many startups. He will mentor them, even invest in them. Well, since we are an incubator for startups, that's why we will talk to many different parties, including Mr. Shih. How about we have a little game before we start? Okay, let's switch our platform. There are 3 questions, so please feel free to vote. You have to scan the QR code first, because we want to check the temperature first. Before Mr. Shih share, I want to see what do you think about different housing issues, so that Mr. Shih has a brief understanding about our audience. So public and private housing together, I'm not sure if Mr. Shih will talk about all of them. Is it enough to satisfy all the housing needs of Hong Kong population?
但係發覺都係 no 喎，點算
Okay, most of them said
應該要
no.
問下施生，陣間
即係不論係講緊 no 嘅意思，即係淨係搣到少少
Okay,
啫，仲有好多
is it
嘢
partially
你話唔係
met
喎需要大
or
量改
not
善
at all?
施生應該
Do we
可唔可以
need to put
啟
in
迪到
a
大家
lot
即係
more
點樣
effort?
啟迪到香港政府
Let's see if Mr. Shih can inspire us all tonight.
咁我哋轉去第
All
二
right,
條啊。
let's move on to the next question.
究竟香港嘅私營房屋咧係咪即係 affordable 啊？即係貴唔貴？
Is private housing in Hong
即係我知道
Kong
咁問嘅
affordable?
話，可能就即係有啲人又叫做阿媽係
Well,
女
I
人
know this
咁但係
kind
都
of a
要問下㗎
trick
咁
question,
即係
right?
就好明顯
It's, the answer seems to be obvious.
高喎，
The price is really high.
呢個阿先生點樣睇生意嘅
Mr. Shih,
呢個先生要講下。
want to
大
note
家話頂唔順喎，大家話。
everyone said it is not
即係大家
affordable
知道啦，即係因為疫情，因為即係好多
because of the pandemic and because of the global economy. Property price in Hong Kong has dropped. I think it is a topic that Mr. Shih would cover.
咁我哋去第三個喎。
Okay, let's move on to the third question.
嗱，即係呢個自己啊，開始問下私人嘅感受啊。
Okay, some sorts of personal feelings. Will you invest in the property market, be it for self-use or as investment? I trust that you have already purchased some our property, but will you do that again in the future? Okay. Wow, it's not very optimistic. People are not very willing, right? Okay, we still have some of us who would like to invest. We see quite a balanced result here. Okay, people have different points of views. I trust that many of you are already owning your own property, or perhaps you are renting one. You are simply deciding whether or not you will purchase a second or third property for your family or as investment. I think it will all affect our prospect towards the property market.
個遊戲我哋玩完啦，不如我哋
Okay, this is the end of the mini game. Let us
分享佢意見。
welcome Mr. Shih to share.
各位朋友
Hello, everyone.
好高興喺呢度同大家
I
分
am
享下
really glad
我
to
對
be
香
here
港
to
房屋
share with
問題嘅
you
睇法。
about my point of views about housing in Hong Kong. Today, we are not just talking about the trends in property market. I will also talk about the macro situation and also the involvement of housing issue in Hong Kong.
會有啲咩可能嘅變數？
And what are some potential changes in the future?
樓價高咧，唔係而家開始。
High property price in Hong Kong did not start today, and it is not something
差唔多
gave birth by the Hong Kong SAR government. When I first came to Hong Kong, the first thing I heard is that, wow, the property in Hong Kong is really expensive and land are very pricey. If you invest in land, it will be a good investment. It was decades ago. I think I come to Hong Kong for over 7 decades.
咁啊，
Over 7 decades.
成日話過高㗎啦，會跌㗎啦。
Everyone said it's overpriced and it is going to drop. But still, as a whole, we see the price trend going up and up.
高地價環境咧，
The environment of Hong Kong is one with high land value. Is the government responsible? The government always said that there is no high land price policy. The government said that they did not design such a policy. But I dare to say that the government did not do anything to reverse this environment. They witnessed the situation, but they have no means to reverse the situation, or they are not active enough to change this environment. Why is that so? Well, since the beginning of Hong Kong history,
政府都係好依
the
賴
government has
高
been
地價。
relying on the high land value.
鴉片戰爭之後
Why?
香港
Since
割咗幾
after the Opium War, Hong Kong is being conceded to the
香港
UK.
唔係英國
However,
唯一嘅殖民地啊嘛。
Hong Kong is not the only colony of the UK. Have you heard of the name of the UK? In Chinese, we say that literally the sun will never goes down for this Commonwealth unity because the colonies are all over the world, including Australia, New Zealand, Canada, South Africa, is in the Middle East, in Asia, India, Pakistan, Myanmar, Malaysia, Singapore. They are all honored by the UK. They have numerous colonies, but they lack the manpower and money because you need to send people to your colonies. If you are not having enough people, how can you colonize the land? You need people to take care of the land. You need people to work. If you want to take something from the colony, you need to send people there to take, right? And when they were touching on the land of the United States, they persecuted the Puritans. When the first vessel went to the United States, it is called the Mayflower, and most of them were the Puritans. Who are going to Australia? Most of them are the prisoners. They are sending prisoners to Australia. It's like a wilderness back then. As for Hong Kong, the UK is not capable of spending loads of money in Hong Kong. They are not investing heavily in Hong Kong because they lack the resources. So what do they do? First, you have this place as your colony and your only resources is the land. So if you make the land valuable, what is the position of Hong Kong? They see that the biggest advantages of Hong Kong is its geographical advantages. It is located at the southern tip of China. It can connect China towards the south. There are Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, the Philippines, etc. Towards the north, you can see Japan, Korea. It is a very prime location for doing businesses. How can you do business as well? They offer a tax-free environment. They want Hong Kong to become a tax-free port. So when people come and do businesses here, they don't need to pay the government. And that's why, before we were complaining how the mainland Chinese people are smuggling the goods without paying tax. But this is something that we have always been doing since the beginning. The UK government did not bring money to Hong Kong, and they did not collect tax from people. There is no tax for import and export, and there are only minimum profit tax from the corporate. So still, there is insufficient fund for you to operate or to manage a city. Back then, there is no social welfare at all. In this city, you do need a lot of infrastructures. You need a port, you need railways, and all requires money. The only thing that they can make money out of is the land of Hong Kong. That is why they sell the land of Hong Kong bit by bit. You can say that they are very wise. The way that they perceive land is actually quite Chinese. They said that all over the world, in Chinese, there is a saying that all land belongs to the emperor, and for the UK, they believe that all land belongs to the Queen. Well, nowadays you see the sign of government land. Back then it is called the crown land, so it belongs to the royal family. It belongs to the British royal family. Such land is not for sale. You often say how the government is selling the land, but you know there is only one piece of land that is permanently sold. All the others are only renting out. So which particular land is being sold? That is the church in Central.
因為英國咧以前係你做對國家有功勞啊，對皇室有功勞就可以賜封你做乜爵乜爵。
In the UK, people would give titles to those who contribute to the country. There are people in Hong Kong who are being titled as well. As for the church, the government will also give you a piece of land as a gift. That's why it is permanently given. But all the other lands that we see in HongOng now are being rented out. So how does it work? If everything is being rented out, then how can they sell the land? They are actually selling out the rights to acquire a lease. So basically, they are renting the land. You are not bidding by the highest price. It's like bribing, you know. Let's say, okay, at the beginning, it only cost 20 cents per hectare. If everybody are competing for this land, why would I be giving it to you and not the other party? Then you have to bribe me. But of course, it is not into my own pocket, but into the company, into the government treasury. If you are willing to pay some amount of money to the government, then the government will rent land to you. At the beginning, the lease only lasts for 75 years. There are long leases on the terms of 99 years, and the longest one is 999 years. Places like Taikoo-shing are for 999 years. Also some land here in Admiralty. So why are the leases on different terms? The Chinese government have learned this from the British government. But the Chinese government is quite rigid. For commercial use, 50 years. Presidential, 70. Taking Shanghai as an example, well, you see, it's the same for Shanghai and Xinjiang. And that is why it is so difficult for Xinjiang to prosper. When the British first came to Hong Kong, they only rented the land for 75 years, 99 years, and at the end, they are offering lease for 999 years. You know, the whole civilization of humankind only lasts for 2,000 years. So 999 is half of the civilization. So it's almost permanent. They will rent out the land to you at low cost in a one-off manner. But then you have to pay them back in other ways. Through this mechanism, they would be able to capture the future profits or the potential profits of that particular piece of land. Through this way, they are able to fund for the government expenditure. Not many people are interested in the land of Hong Kong at the beginning. Or because the British has a lot of colonies. They don't see land as valuable. You know, in the United States, you just ride the horse and whatever the horse set foot on belongs to you. And that is how people acquire land. But it is up to you to send away the native people living on that particular land. That is the case for the US. And in Hong Kong, that is how they operated to ensure they have income. You know, Hong Kong do not have vast land, so they can't send people to ride a horse. Instead, they only sell out the land bit by bit. There is not much infrastructure. If you're living in Taikoo-shing, you know what was said back then? It was just a port. there are even railway in Taikoo. It was built by Taikoo, not the government. But
以
now,
前係糖廠嘅水塘嚟嘅，太古做方糖咁，而家都仲有㗎。太古方
Taikoo
糖
started as a sugar
整個水
factory.
塘，即係水塘係
So
自己
they
起
have
路啊、
to
鐵路啊
build
都
their
要
own
自己起。
ponds,
佢就
the
係
railways
收
and
地
all the
價。
roads inside.
咁咧
The
就
government only
由
charged for
呢
the
個方
land.
式咧，佢維持
Through
政
this
府
way,
嘅收入。
the
咁
government
所
can
以
maintain the income.
政府靠土地咧，唔係靠咗10零20年。
Therefore, the government is not relying on land only in the past decade. They have been relying on land income for the
咁
past
土地係
hundreds of
政府嘅
years.
收入來源咧，
If land
政
is
府
the
搞掂
income
啦
of the，
但
government,
係佢慢慢搣、慢慢賣，擠
so
牙膏咁樣
as
啲
I
價
said,
錢先上
the
啊。
government is only
咁但
selling out
普
the
羅
land
大
bit
眾
by
點算
bit.
咧？
So normally the
普羅
price
大
will
眾
go
未必
up
買得起樓
slowly.
喎，所以頭先
What will happen
大
to the
家都
general
話：
public?
哇，樓價咁貴，
As
貴
what
定平
you
啊？個
have
個都話貴
said,
嚇。
the prices are
但係香
unaffordable
港
to the
唔係
majority.
淨係有錢人噶嘛
And
嚇。
Hong Kong not
以
just
前
have
啲普羅
the
大眾咧，
affluence.
通常係住喺嗰啲二房東
The
租出嚟嘅樓，即
majority
係
of the
政府批
people
一
are
塊地
living
俾
at
你，
the
你一成年起咗
sublet
樓，起
apartments.
咗樓嗰陣時唔
In
識
other
分層
words,
出售
the
嘅，
government
就係
give you a piece of land.
賣
Somebody
咗
will
俾一
build
個
a building
唔係
there.
賣俾好多個小業主
Then the
喎，係賣
apartment
咗俾一
buildings
個
will
業主，
be
一個業
sold
主揾咗
to
個
one owner.
租客，個租客咧就
And
先
then
至
they will
間
find
晒佢
someone to
租俾其他
rent
人。
the
有冇聽過
apartment,
有個話
and
劇
then
叫做
they will
72家房，
divide it
就
and
係嗰個
sublet
年
it.
代㗎啦。
You know, in
咁啊，
Cantonese, we have a very famous broadcast
但即
drama
係出現咗個
which
情況咧，就
describes
係
about
少數
the
有錢嘅
subletting
人可以
situation.
買到地。
So
一
at
買
that
就買
time,
成塊㗎
only
啦，
a
冇得買一
handful
個
of
單位
rich
嘅。
people can
如果你
purchase
睇過粵語殘片啊，
such
嗰啲武
property.
小
But
姐
when
啊，
they purchase, they are not
作啲老襯咧，
purchasing unit by unit. They are
作親都
purchasing
一
the
個
whole
number㗎，
building.
係嘛？
If you are
就唔
watching
係話
old
俾個
Hong
單位
Kong
我啦，
movies,
俾個單，俾
they
個
they
number
they
我，
were
你喺
describing
你
that
度俾個 number 我
scenario.
咧，我
You
就跟
know,
你啦。
whenever the pretty ladies ask for something
number,
from a
number,
rich man, they will ask for a number, and it is not a number for one particular apartment. It is the number of one particular building, because that is how it
賣地
was
嘅收
working.
入嚇，同埋佢一次過咧就賣成個地段個叫做
The
lot
government is
number，初初唔係
supported
門
by
牌
the
嘅一個
land
lot。
sale.
咁
Back then, they would
然後
they would
再
sell out the
起
lot
咗
by
慢
number.
慢再
People will build
出租。
upon it, and
咁
it
樣咧，
will be
土地
rented
發展
out
係好慢
slowly.
嘅。
Therefore,
因為起
land
完樓
development is very
你
slow.
要成座樓一齊賣，因為個地契係一張啊嘛。
Well,
咁你要
because
成座樓一齊賣咧。
deed covers the
你係
whole
好難揾
building,
到對
and
手
it is
嘅，
very
唔係個
difficult
個
for
買
you
得
to
起嘅。
find
你
buyer.
唯
Not
有咧
everybody can afford.
租俾個有錢啲嘅嗰
The
個
only
再
way
分租。
is to
啊，
rent
人哋
it
做
to a
二
rich
房東，你
person
做
so
三
that
房
he
客。
or she can further
咁
sublet it.
普羅大眾咧，一係就住喺山邊木屋
For
啊，
the general
寮屋
public, they
啊，
either
一係就
live
住
in the
喺嗰啲間道
squatters,
細一細。
the
哇！而
slums,
家啲劏房
or the subdivided
靚過以前
units.
多多
You know,
聲
the
啊！而家啲劏
subdivided
房
units that
獨
we
立廁
now
所
have
啊，
is so
啊
much
以
better
前
than what we
一
had
層
back then,
一層
because we
唐
even
樓
have our own
啊，由前
bathrooms.
面有兩
At
個
that
眼
time,
鏡房，中間房又
we
冇
are
窗，後面
dividing it in a
仲
much
有
more
廚
severe
房、廁所，
situation.
廚房隔
People
離就係
even
廁
have to
所，
live in the
唔係而
kitchen.
家劏房先咁啊！大部分唐樓都係咁嘅，
It happened many years ago.
居住環境係好差。
So the living situation
咁但
is
係咁
very
樣咧，
undesirable.
係替社會帶嚟矛盾嘅，大量嘅人
Therefore,
住
it
喺
has
木屋區
caused a
喎，
lot of
啊，
issues
政府
in the society. The
差佬都好
majority
少
of the
入去。
residents were living in
你
the
最近
squatters or the
睇
slums.
咩九龍城
You know,
寨
you
啊，
have
九龍
watched the
城寨
movie,
差
the
佬好少
Kowloon
入。
Walled
呢
City,
啲木屋
right?
區啊、寮屋區啊，
Police
差佬都
rarely
唔係
enter
點入
into
去
it. Likewise,
入邊
was
就
the
黃賭毒
squatters or
啊、
the
粉
slums
檔啊、
area
賭檔
at then.
啊，
So there were
咁
people gambling, there were
即係
prostitutions,
基層咧
even
就
drug
生
trafficking.
活得麻麻地嘅啫。
The
咁到
grassroots
咗
population
60年代
had
開始
difficult
咧，即
times.
係第二次世界大戰後，
After the Second World
好
War,
多
since the
大
60s,
陸喺上海啊嗰啲
Many Chinese people migrated to Hong Kong. They were moving to Hong Kong from Shanghai. They are mostly some rich capitalists, including the mills or the shipping companies, and also Xinjiang Construction, Puhua Constructions. These are all the enterprises started by the well-off capitalist from Shanghai. Since then, Hong Kong is no longer an entrepot. We started to move towards manufacturing. Hong Kong used to be a manufacturing center. The manufacturing of Hong Kong is by no means bad. When we were an entrepot, then the general public will be doing the gooly. That is, people who move the goods from one location to another. With the manufacturing industry, the situation in Hong Kong has changed because in the manufacturing industry there will be management level, there will be marketing teams, we need people from financing, etc. And these all belong to professional services. We also have many refugees coming to Hong Kong. That generation of refugees are very diligent. You know, in mainland China, they have the staff. So when they come to Hong Kong, they can make their own money. You know, in China, when they were in China, when they work and make money, everything has to be given back to the government. But it is different in Hong Kong, and that's why they have drive to work hard. That's why we started to see middle class in Hong Kong. We also start to see the rise of industrial development in Hong Kong. At that time, high property price will cause the workers a hard time, or because they only make a little bit of money and everything were being taken away by the landowners. They would bully them by increasing the rents. So no matter how hard they work, all their income will be given to the landowner or the subletters. The only thing the workers can do is to start off you know, back then, workers always went on strike. If they went on strike on a large scale, they even connect with those in Shanghai and Guangzhou in order to prevent them from happening. The government has to do something, or perhaps it is not something that they think of from scratch. The government believes that through the management of housing, they can subsidize exports in order to open Hong Kong society to the world market. You know, that is what China was doing back then. China were opening up markets in different countries, and other countries were complaining them for something. Well, because they offer tax return for exports. How did the Hong Kong government do that? The Hong Kong government also subsidized industries, but nobody knows. The other countries do not know it. Hong Kong people don't know. It is only something that I know. Well, I'm not sure it is accurate. You can discern it yourself. What they do is to build temporary housing next to the industrial areas, below including Kwun Tong. Right next to Kwun Tong, you see Yau Tong, Lam Tin, and Sao Mau Ping. And Lam Tin is another industrial area, and there will be a Jordan Valley, and also the Garden Building. Likewise, Tsuen Wan and Kwai Chung. Wherever there are factories right next to it, you will find temporary housing. So people living in the squatters will be moved to the housing nearby the factories. Actually, they are building dorms for the capitalists. Is it the case? I think so. The only reason why the government is building so many housing for the grassroots level is not because they just want to take care of their needs. One of the major reasons is to support the industries so that the workers can have a roof upon the head.
公屋俾工人住，
If you
西方國家就唔可
offer
以話你
them some low rent housing, then the Western countries cannot blame you for subsidizing industry. This is just social welfare, something that is very common in the Western countries.
廉價嘅工業附近工業區附近
So
嘅
the
宿
government is
舍，
offering
等
some
啲工
low
人咧
dormitories
即係有個基本
to
生
the
活，
workers
就唔使
nearby
成日
the
嘈。
industrial
咁啊，香
areas,
港工業
and
因而
they
做得好
no
好
longer
啊。
complain
香
that
港嗰陣時
much.
細
And
細
that's
個
why
城
our
市，
industry is
300-400萬人
prospered.
口，
Back then, we
做
only
好
had
多
3
世
to
界
4
第一
million
㗎啦，咩
population,
做
but we
假髮
have
啊，
become
做
a
電子
world
啊，
first,
做玩具
including
啊，
our electronics,
成衣啊，
toys, garments,
好犀利嘅
even wigs.
嚇。而家我哋話同大灣區結
Nowadays,
合。
we said we have to integrate into the
80
Greater
年
Bay
代我哋
Area.
已經係
Back in the 80s,
協助大灣
we
區
are
工
already
業化
supporting the industrialization in
而
the
家
Greater
反而
Bay
啲工
Area.
廠頂唔順翻落嚟嘅都
Nowadays, there are many
好多想
factories
去做工
moving
業
back to Hong Kong from China. But
講
back
翻
then, it was the other way
樓嘅問
around.
題啊，即係
Going back to the property market,
即係公屋嘅出現咧，
the
好
emergence
大
of
部
public
分
housing
就係為咗要支持工業發
is
展。
mainly to
等
support
工人
the
安身工作，
development of the
唔好
industries
咁
so
多
that
搞
the
罷工
workers would have a
啊
better
就
peace
幫
of
你
mind,
解決
so that they
嗰個
won't organize that
廉
many
價嘅
strikes.
居住問題。咁有一個時期咧，
At
住
certain
公屋
period
嘅
in
人
time,
咧
people who are
差
living
唔
in the
多
public
去到
housing
近
is up
半
to
咁滯嘅。
50%.
咁後期咧，政府覺得淨唔止淨係住公屋，
At the
有
later
啲
stage,
人
the
想
government
買
said
嘅
that
嚇。其
the
實
government think that public housing is not just enough because people want to own
政府
their
有
own
冇
house.
平俾你咧？
Is
係
there
冇平俾
any
你嘅。
discount for the
政府
ownership
係
program? Actually, no.
如果淨係計建築成本啊，
If the
居屋
government is
嗰
only
啲唔係好
calculating
貴
the
嘅啫。
construction
而家房
cost,
委
the home
會啊，
ownership program is
只可以
actually not
起
that
咁多公
costly.
屋。
The reason
靠
why the
起
housing
居屋
society
賺
can
錢嘅
build
啫。
that many
咁
public housing is because they are making
佢咧係
profit from the home ownership
將
program
居屋嘅價
units.
錢同私人市場嘅價錢掛
They
鈎
are，matching
打一個
the
折扣俾
price of
你。
the home ownership
將來你
programs
賣
with
出
the
仲要你
private
補地
market
價。
with discount.
咁但
If you
係
sell it out, you
啲
still
地翻嚟
had
咧，
to pay back
其
the
實成
government.
本就唔使去到咁高，所以政府起居
And
屋咧
the
都係
cost
賺錢嘅。
actually not
咁
that much. That's why the government is
由於
actually making
香
money
港
by
嘅
building the
樓啊，
home ownership program
唔
housing.
係銷售俾全香
Properties
港
in
人，
Hong Kong
即係香港政
is
府基本
not
上
sold
將
to the whole
香港
population
人
in
咧
Hong
分
Kong.
開三類，
Basically, the government
一
has
類咧
divided
就
Hong Kong people into 3
收入
different
唔
sectors.
高，
The first
喺
one,
香
the low
港咧
income sector.
係連建築費都俾唔起嘅。
They can't even afford the
咁
construction
佢就
cost.
冇能力去起樓啊，
But this group
啊
of
冇
people,
能力
they
買樓嘅，
can't
咁唯
purchase any
有
property.
住政府提供嘅廉
So
租
they can
公屋。
only
有一部分人咧
find
佢係
housing from
俾
public
得起
housing.
建築費嘅，
There's
但
another
係
group of
俾
people
唔
who
起
can
地
afford
價，
the construction
咁
cost, but
佢
not
就
the
只
land
能
value.
夠買政
So for them, they
府
can only
特別為佢
purchase
設嘅
the
冇收足市價嘅地價嘅
which
居
is
屋
a
或者其他資
discounted
助房屋。
property housing
到
or other subsidized housing.
真正喺香港有立足能力啊，有專
For the
業啊，有
final
管理
group who
能
are
力啊，
professional or
創
at the
咗業有
managed
生意啊，
level, if they
呢
have
批
their
人
own
咧
businesses,
先
this
至
group of
住私
people
人樓。
can afford private
咁
housing.
我原本諗住政府設計出嚟嘅
Originally,
房屋邊啲幾多人住公屋，幾多人住私樓，幾多人住居
the
屋
government
咧？
had designed
我嘅
a
諗法咧就係
proportion or a ratio for these
應
three
該
groups of people.
住私人樓嘅
At the
人
beginning, I thought
越
those
嚟越
living
多，
in the private
咁先
housing
係
shall
香港
increase.
嘅福分嚟噶嘛。
And that is
如
the
果我
blessing
哋
of Hong Kong,
齊
right?
齊日住公屋，
If we all
你
live in
話
the public
係咪
housing,
等於香港人更幸福咧？
Does it mean that all the Hong Kong people are having a better life? Certainly not. When we were younger, we were living in the subdivided unit, and we always chant saying that we had to purchase our own apartments and keep a dog there. That is the goal, or every Hong Kong rich people back then. Nobody would set that goal or target at living public housing. If this was my son, I would hit it up because it is no goal to set. You know, if you are a graduate from the college, nowadays, you will apply for public housing right after graduation. This is so wrong. In my opinion, if Hong Kong is becoming more and more affluent, there shall be more people living in private housing. Well-being is something very personal. Everybody has their own definitions. Therefore, it is very difficult for the government to find your happiness. The only way to do that is to do it the socialist way, to be equal, right?
如果你係住私人樓嘅，你有本事咪住大啲咯。你住公屋唔係㗎，個個單位都差唔多，呢啲叫兩房戶，呢啲就單房戶。呢啲就三房戶。就起出嚟嘅個個差唔多。所以我原本預期咧，
even they have different sizes, they all look similar. At the beginning, I expected that more and more people in Hong Kong would own their own property because they have enough wealth.
住自己嘅屋，但係咧，我哋啲議員呢度都有議員。
But our legislator, sorry, we have one legislator here. My apologies. They were really great because they are very eager to fight for us. They want the government to build more public housing. At the beginning, it is only 50-50, but then 40-60. As for nowadays, it is 7-3. 70% of the land has to be used to build for subsidized housing. 30% can be set aside for private housing. Therefore, there will be fewer and fewer people who can afford private housing. Fewer the buyers, higher the price. Mr. Shih, are you in your right mind? I don't think that is the case. If we have fewer buyers, then the properties do not have to be designed for the general public. You are only targeting at the 30% in Hong Kong who are the most affluent in Hong Kong. I think there is a consultancy in other countries. They have done a survey. They said, oh, it is so difficult for Hong Kong people to purchase an apartment. It would require them 16.7 years to purchase an apartment. I don't think it is scientific calculation because they are calculating the mean of the income of general public and to match it with the private housing. You know, many people are living in subsidized housing and public housing. You can't do your calculations this way.
餐香港人都係去 fine dining 嘅，咁梗係花喺食物好多錢啦。但實際情況唔係所有人都咁樣去。For every single meal, then of course they will be spending a lot of money on food, but that is not the reality. 喺房屋入邊嘅使費多唔多咧？
Do we spend a lot on housing?
唔係學想像中咁多嘅。之前啲報紙話，哇，香港人真係可悲啦，收入嘅大部分都俾發展商交咗俾銀行。咁如果你睇翻政府人口普查嘅統計數字，香港咧。
In Hong Kong, if you look at the census statistic, 30% of people in Hong Kong are living in the public housing. Less than 20% are living in subsidized housing. That is the HOS. About half of them are living in private housing.
咁住公屋交嗰啲租金大概係幾多咧？係佢日息嘅10%，攞綜援又唔使交添。
of your income. If you are taking the CSS8, then you don't even need to pay for your rent. If you have purchased your own property, around 70 of them have finished to pay your mortgage. I think it's the case for many of you, but you will not admit it.
有排供嗰啲梗係好有志氣嗰啲啦，買咗又換，買咗又換。如果唔係你供下供下政府又辣椒喎，你又唔容易換喎，咁啊供下咪供滿咯。60%幾人供滿，未供滿嗰啲人用佢哋嘅收入幾多成去供樓咧？拉勻都係20%，
of the income from mortgage.
70幾個%嘅收入
That means over 70% of the income are
有
dispensable.
一個決定點樣去 dispose 嘅 income 嚟嘅，所以好過世界上好多地方。
We are much
咁但係咧，
than many other countries in
我
the
唔係
world.
話呢個合理化，
I'm not
以
here
香港
to
人
justify
嗰
our
個
situation.
生產力，香港人嘅人
Judging
均生
the
產力好過
productivity
英
of
國
Hong
少
Kong, you
少
know, the productivity per
嘅。以香
capita
港人咁
is
嘅
a
經
little
濟
bit
能
better
力
than the
咧，
British.
我哋應
Judging
該
our
每個家庭千零尺閒閒地。
I think
大陸都千零尺一個單位啦，大陸如果少過90尺，90尺差唔多1000英尺到啦。90尺以下佢叫細單位，人哋嘅細單位計咧就計喺90尺，即係1000尺就係以下咧就細單位。香港分開 A、B、C、D、E、A 好似得300尺到嘅啫。
smallest unit
咁變
is
咗咧
about
就
30 square feet.
我哋其實以咁嘅經濟能力應該可以住好啲，
Without
只不過咧
economic
我哋
power,
點解
we
住唔
are
起咧？
supposed to
如
live
果俾
better.
建
The
築
reason why
費
we
咧，
can't
我哋
afford
俾得
it,
起有餘嘅。
well,
不
the
過政
true
府收
reason
咗好多
is
地
not
價。
that we can't
如
afford
果
the
政
construction
府
cost. It
要
is because
解
of
決
the
房屋
land
問
value
題，
paid to the
佢
government.
願意
If
收
the
少啲
government
地
is
價啫，
willing to solve the housing
就
issues,
解
as
決
long
問
as
題
they are
㗎啦。
willing
有啲
to
人話唔
charge
夠地
less
喎，點解決
on
啊？
land value, they can
香港
resolve
大
this
把
problem
地，
in one oath.
香港
Hong
只
Kong
係
has
用
a
咗
lot of land supplies. Hong Kong has
25%
only
度嘅
used
土地
around
攞嚟做城
25%
市
of
發
its
展嘅，
land as
大
urban
部分嘅
development.
土地都未用
Majority
嘅。
of our land
你唔
are
信揸架車
undeveloped.
向
You
西
can
過咗
just
美孚啊，大把
drive
地㗎
towards
啦。
west. If you
向
pass
北過咗
Mayfu,
獅子
there
山
are a
都
lot
大
of
把
land
地。
unused. If you pass
向
to
東
Nyack
你
Road,
過咗油塘
there
都
are
好多
also a
地。
lot of unused land. Likewise, if you go east past
冇攞嚟
Yao Tong, there
用㗎
are
嘛
a lot of
即
unused
使冇
land.
地啊，都唔使搞到
Even if
要
we are
去
really running out of
咁難
land,
去開發呢度開發嗰
we
度。
really
我哋
don't
需要嘅
have to
樓唔
put so
係
much
地啊嘛，
effort
你將
into
啲地積比
developing
率
new
擔就得
land.
咯，
You
嚇
just
邊
have
使
to
揾地啫，又去
increase the
填海
ratio
嚇。
of
嗰陣時
land
初
to
搞我都
property.
贊成㗎，因為嗰陣時有班人成日都
I
阻
do
頭阻勢，
support
唔俾政府攞
reclamation.
地啊
Back
嘛。
then,
我話
there
係
is
啱
a
㗎啦，
group
北
of
區又
opposers.
搞，大嶼山又
For
搞，
then I
千
would say
帆
you
並
have to
舉，
do
你
it
去
in
示
the
威都
Northern
唔知去
District,
邊
do
度
it in
示
the
好
Lantau
啊。
Lantau
咁
Island, do it
但
everywhere
係
so
咧，
that the
如果俾
protesters
我
won't
講，
know where
如
to
果你
go.
唔夠錢咧，
If it were up
你
to
根本
me,
唔需要揾地嘅喎，
you don't
你
need to
喺
look
土
for
地上
land.
面俾佢起多2層咪
It's
得
just
咯。
allow
而
the
家新界
developers
啲
to
地
build 2 more
好多都
floors.
係
In the new
1
territories,
倍地積比率都冇啊！
they are
市
having
區
a
啊
very
都
low
有啲係
ratio
好
of
低地積
development.
比率嘅。
Even
嗱，
for
九
the
龍
urban
塘有啲
area,
得
taking
0.6
Kowloon
倍
Tong, some of
，1
them
萬尺
was
地起到
only
6000尺屋
0.6.
嚇。
For
如果你變成
for
6 倍，
land
市區有
of
啲地方8倍、
10,000
9
square
倍都
feet,
有。
they can only build
由
housing
0.6
for
倍變
6,000 square
6倍啊，
feet.
都多咗
If
10
you
倍嘅建築
change
面
it from
積嘅。
0.9 to
所以唔
0.6,
使
then it
驚
will be
冇
10
地嘅。
times more. So you don't need to
你
worry
只要
about running out of
照
land.
嗰班城市規劃師嚟開會，
You just
啊
need
我
to
幫你手
call for
教
a
訓下佢
meeting
哋。
with the city planners. They
點
can help
解
you out.
九龍塘都咁低地積比
How
率
come we
咧？
have
九
such
龍
a
塘係
low
交通樞紐
building
嚟
ratio in
㗎
Kowloon
嘛，
Tong?
又
It
有
is a
鐵路、九港
transportation
鐵路，
hub.
而
We
家
have
就
a
叫港鐵
railway.
啦嚇，起碼
We have the
向北有鐵
MTRC.
路，打橫有 嗰個叫咩農場道。
And we also
又
have
有地
many
鐵站
major roads.
做商業中心都得啦。你睇下有
It
一成
can
幾
actually
喎
be built into a
佢得
commercial
0.6
center. Look
倍
at
喎。
Festival walks.
加多
The
利
floor
山其實
area
即係旺角
ratio
隔
is only
離啊嘛，
0.6.
點解
The
唔
Cadbury
起
Mount,
高啲啊？佢
Cadbury
得
Hill
0.6。
is right next to Long Kong. For a
我做監會
city
啦，我而家鼓
now,
吹
you
佢
dare to do that. Of course, I am there because I'm fearless now. Sorry, the audience is not speaking to the mic. The first time I came, I listened from Wing-ching. He said that he was in the 90s. Sorry, the audience is not speaking to the mic.
不如咁樣啊，等阿先生講晒。
好啊，
We allow Mr.
都
Shih to
會
finish his
少少啦。
sharing
我跟住
first.
講翻我嗰啲啦，即係新加坡嘅組屋咧
Singapore, the
係
housing in
賣嘅為
Singapore
主嘅，咁
mainly
你都
for
要
sale.
嗰啲人嘅基本收入俾得起建築費先得㗎。
They need
政府
to have
唔使
income
唔可能長
enough
期
to
政府
cover
貼
for
你㗎
construction
嘛
costs because the government cannot subsidize you forever.
唔係借錢，但係你要還㗎嘛，唔係唔使還㗎。
You can lend money, but you need to pay
但
that
係
back.
計唔計到就睇你嘅收入啦。如果你根本冇翻工綜援嘅，
If
咁
you
你
do
哋
not
點
have
樣攞
income
咧
at
嚇？
all, then
咁
how
嗱，
can
即
you
係
have income?
呢個問題一陣我都會 cover 到嘅。
I will respond
咁
to
我而
this
家
question
講咧就
later
係
on.
即係由私人樓出現到有公屋有
We were
居屋
talking
嚇，
about
咁
private housing and the
長期
public
以嚟
housing and then the
咧，
HOF.
私人樓嘅銷售對象係好少數
The target
俾得
audience
起
of the
錢嘅人，
private housing
咁
is
佢咪價錢
only the
咪要
minority
可以
of
賣
Hong Kong
貴啲咯
population because
如果
only
政府
they can
規定
afford it. That's why they can be set at
冇
a higher
即係
price.
冇居屋㗎啦，所有
If
嘅
there is
樓
no
咧要
land
賣俾
by
香港
HOS,
70%人。
if all the
咁
housing
你
are
定
targeted
嘅
at the
價咧
70%
就
of the
要
Hong Kong
70%
population, then
香
the
港人
price that
買
is
得起
set
喎。
needs
而
to be
家佢只
affordable by
要
70%
三
of
成
Hong Kong
香港人
population.
買得起喎。
Nowadays,
如果
they
要七
only
成香港人買得起咧，
of a
佢
housing
嘅平
affordable
均
to
定價就
30%
要
of the
降低。
population.
所以睇
If
佢嘅銷售
70%
對
of the
象。
population
而家
needs
政
to
府
be
就
able
係
to
容
afford that, then
許
the
私
prices
人
to
發
go
展
down.
商嘅銷售
Nowadays,
對
the
象
government allowed the developers
係
to
30%
product
人，所以
that
咪
market
價
at
錢
only
升咯。
30% of the
新
population,
加
and
坡咧
that's
係
why
差
the
唔多
price
全
continue
民
to
啊
surge. For Singapore,
都係買組屋，但係新加坡都有
whole
公屋嘅。
population are buying HDB.
咁啊樓價一定係平㗎啦。
And that's why the property
係啊，
price
但佢喺嗰度
goes
收
down.
咗可以貼你啊嘛。咁
You can
嗱，
collect
好
money
啊
from，somewhere
你話
else
全
and
部
subsidize to
你而家唔收地價，你
If
97 之後
you
跌咗
made a
70%，
land value, you
仲
know,
平過居屋，
prices
居屋都放
drop
棄
for
啦。
70%.
咁
It is
出
even
現咗
cheaper
咩
than
問
the
題咧？
HOS housing.
唔係
So
想
what
像
would be the
咁好嘅
problem?
世界，以
It
為
is
樓
not
價
as
跌咗，大
ideal
家
as
就
you think. If the
皆大歡
property
喜。
market
結果係咩咧？政府
Well, I'm not talking about of property price. I'm talking about affordability.
我講緊
Let's
政
not
府嘅
mix
問
it up.
題。
I'm talking
我話
about the
政府一
problem with
開
the
始
government.
就係依賴
At the
土
beginning,
地收入。
the government was
咁
relying
你如果
on the
學你
land
咁講咧，就
income.
唔再依賴啦。咁
If
政
they
府
no
喺邊度
longer
生？我咪
rely
話
on the land income,
政
where
府
can they
到
find
今日
income?
都未準備好，
Until today,
都
the
未
government
為
is still
放棄地
unprepared.
價
The government
作好
is
準備。如果佢
unprepared to
冇作準備，
getting
冇喺
income
其他
from
地方
land sale.
揾
If the
到收
government
入
is，unprepared, if they did
咁
not
佢
find
一改，
alternative
咪
income,
樓價
once
一跌就
this
出
policy
事
is
啊，未
changed,
跌啊，跌咗少少咋
or even
啊，
if
已
the
經有
property
負
market
資
is
產啊，
slightly
已經啊
dropped, there will be a
流
lot of
標啊
social
啊，
problems.
本來一
People,
季
developers
買
will
好
no
多塊
longer
地，而
bid
家
for
買
the
一塊都
tender.
驚啊！
They
咁
will not bid
賣
for the
到
lot anymore.
10%到啫喎，有90%賣
Only
唔出喎，
10% of the
咁點算咧
land？can be sold
咪
now.
結果
90%
咪
were unsold. So what
嗰
did they
嗰
do?
時咪又要 cut 綜援，又要 cut 公務員人工，邊個梁錦松啊？如果唔係要 cut 公務員人工啊，cut 綜援啊，佢買咗架車都放過去㗎啦。哇！我哋咁慘，你仲買架車？雖然你唔係特登偷雞啊，你都冇運行啊。咁所以你一去到嗰個情況咧，民怨四起㗎，即係你23條立法咁多人去，其實好多都唔知23條係乜，但係佢知道自己嘅資產變咗值，咁所以咧就你要準備放棄高地價，你睇下喺邊度攞翻啲錢先。你加唔加利得稅？唔加得喎，因為新加坡都係咁上下利得稅，而家連愛爾蘭都減咗稅，低稅唔係淨係香港獨有喎。咁有啲話啊，好多地方都有銷售稅，哇！收銷售稅，咪基層最慘，買嘢都要俾稅喎。不過全世界好多地方都有銷售稅㗎。咁你如果唔收地產嘅稅咧，你就要喺第二度補翻。大家願唔願補？唔制喎。咁97之後兜兜轉轉又咪翻去地產，又要救市。最初啲民主派唔贊成救市㗎，咁見到咁慘嘅個個都唔認佢要求打擊樓市㗎啦。跌咗之後個個都唔認數啊！咁所以咧而家我哋係未準備好，純粹起好啲樓俾人住，平平地賣，梗係得啦。嗰度有幾多錢嘅？Of course, this is something that we can afford. 咁變咗咧就你要成套考慮，因為我哋已經喺高地價政策入邊生活咗太耐。咁所以我自己覺得咧，香港咧應該分成係私人市場嘅地。私樓咧就有得有能力嘅人做生意嘅高級知識分子管理人員，你咪同成個社會去競爭啦，唔只要同你隔離嗰個同事競爭，仲要同大陸來客競爭，仲要同外國投資者競爭。你有本事，如果你冇本事，政府就為所有香港出世嘅人一生中提供一個上車自住嘅機會咁呢個機會咧，李嘉誠嘅仔都有。不過我唔俾你出租，只準自住，唔俾賣俾唔符合資格嘅人，咁佢就唔會嚟申請㗎啦。申請攞個單位交管理費、交差餉咩？咁所以人人都一生中有，就可以唔定一個政府要求嘅地價，由發展商去投，但係
不如等大家講晒先啦，等大家講。等阿先生講晒先。好啊，
嗱，因為咧，我淨係要求佢賣俾呢批人嘅對象，咁佢定嘅價錢一定唔可以超過呢批人嘅負擔能力，由銷售對象嘅負擔能力去制約發展商嘅定價，就唔使話好似居屋啊，就揾一啲專業人員去定價。咁而家專業人定價咧係將佢同私樓掛鈎。你一方面話私樓嘅價錢偏高唔合理，咁你定價又同私樓掛鈎做咩咧？所以我就係透過銷售對象嘅限制嚟等市場自由定價。咁初初定嘅時候，你賣俾有能力啲嘅，但係由於佢嘅買咗之後只能夠自住。 或者賣俾合資格嘅人士，咁啊價錢咧，我認為會控制得住嘅。咁樣咧就係有人買私樓自由競爭，有人係買香港人專用嘅樓、專用嘅上車盤，就受到香港人自己嘅負擔能力制約。而家咧，因為香港人係買嗰啲，外地人又買嗰啲，個價錢就撈亂咗。咁呢個咧就係我嘅理想嘅房屋政策。咁但係做呢樣嘢咧，要有即係遞進式嘅利得稅嘅，即係都要有錢人俾多少少利得稅。咁亦都要靠香港咧，要做高尖嘅產業，要做金融，要做專業服務。如果香港人而家成日驚人搶咗你份工，清潔又唔俾人做，要自己做；看護啲老人家又係要自己做。咁香港人咧就成日都做一啲低質嘅工作。我係贊成要開放門戶，唔使揀專才高才，又話要讀咩大學。佢夠膽嚟揾到工做咪俾佢做咯。你睇上海而家有冇要戶口啊？湖南嚟又得，黑龍江嚟又得，新疆嚟都得。你揾到工、租到樓，唔係喺上海翻工咯。咁香港世界上大部分嘅城市又好，國家又好，高速發展嘅都係移民城市、移民國家嚟嘅。香港就係移民城市，美國就係移民國家。啲人離鄉別井咧，就勤力過有阿媽煲湯嘅。咁我喺上海請人啦，都唔請上海人嘅。我請新疆人啦、長沙人啦、四川人啦，嗰啲咧離鄉別井嘅，想衣錦還鄉啊嘛，冇退路㗎。所以咧，我覺得香港開放啲。如果俾你以而家啲官員嘅揀法啊，佢揀唔揀到李嘉誠啊？李嘉誠咁嘅學歷一早俾人踢咗出去啦。所以咧就係你做到嘢發展到嘅好多都係即係移民嚇。移民咧，我見啲商業學院做過統計啊，移民入邊係創業比例最高嘅一個羣體嚟嘅。因為移民去到你可能冇嗰度嘅學歷，專業資格又唔承認，咁唯有創業咯。冇辦法㗎，我啲朋友做銀行高管嘅，去咗加拿大，去咗澳洲，都被逼創業啦，陣間即係餐廳仔啊，賣下啲雜貨啊。咁因為移民條路難行啊嘛，難行就會創業。會創業就會唔識做到，我都冇學過管理學㗎。咁你上咗位啦，你要生存，逼上梁山啦，咁你要學管理，唔識法律要學法律，咁所以我話如果香港咧肯放多啲人嚟，咁咧就經濟發達，就樓就唔成問題。香港其實以一個第二次世界大戰後先至起動嘅城市咧，香港住屋問題唔算做得差嘅。我做房委會嘅時候，世界各地都有人嚟參觀。點解咧？因為你睇下約翰羅斯堡，你睇下馬尼拉，里約熱內盧，都係2000後崛起嘅城市，人哋啲貧民窟啊、啲鐵皮屋啊、入邊黑社會橫行啊，香港係一路有改善，但係香港而家普遍住得細， 咁我哋可以一級
the
級
majority of the population are
換上
living
去。
in some
咁
smaller housing units. That's why
香
we
港咧，
can
由於
progress
政府
in a gradual manner.
同地產共命運
The Hong
所以
Kong
咧就
government has tied
令到
its
有一
destiny
批
with
投
the
資
property
者
market.
成日都覺
Therefore,
得
a group
有
of
樓就發
investors
啦，
always
有
believe
樓
that they
政
can
府
make
都
a
會維
fortune
護
as
地
long
產
as
嘅
they
利益
own，
所以
properties.
香港
They
嘅
believe that
地
the
產
government
投
will
資嘅
protect
比例
the
係好
right
高嘅。
of the
咁
property
一旦好
market.
高
That's
咧，
why
變咗我哋係將
investment
大
rate
量
in the property
財
market
富
is really high.
儲存喺房地
Therefore,
產，
a lot of
所以
wealth
房地
are
產
being
下跌
kept
咧，
in the property market. If the market
初初以為
drops,
樓價跌咗，咪大家開心
you
啲
know,
咯，
at
買樓
first we
平
thought
啲啦。
everybody will be
但
happy
係樓
when
價跌
the
咗，
price
令
dropped.
以前嘅積累
But
付諸流水。
when the market
97
goes
之後
downwards,
衰咗
even
6
the
年。
wealth will be
啲人嘅講
evaporated.
法就
After
係我一
1997, we
生
have
嘅
bad
努
luck
力，
for
話
6 years.
上半生嘅努力啊，
Many has
換來下
complained
半生還
because
不完的
they
債。
have
因
invested
為你買一層樓，
the efforts of
你又
the
供唔起，
first
銀
half
行
of
收一
life
層
in
樓
a，property.
銀行冇
When
放
the
過你
property
喎，仲要你
market
還
drops,
債喎。
all your
因
efforts
為你
has
收
turned
層樓
into a
都唔
lifelong
夠。
debt.
97之後，我見過好多朋友係要儲錢買樓啊！你
I
哋
see
淨係
many
儲錢
who
買
need
樓，
to
呢
save
個世
money
界
so
原來
that
有
they
人
can
儲錢
sell
買樓啊！
a
要
property.
賣嗰層樓咧，要抬錢去熟
You
契啊！
need to
咁
redeem
呢個咧
your
就
deed
香港
only if you have
嘅
acquired enough money.
K 型社會就係好多人將個財富放咗喺樓嗰度，唔止好多人，好多機構。
So,
上市公司上市
It
要
is
睇你
not
資產，
just
睇下
about
你有冇物業。
individuals. It is
你
also
嫁
about
老
the
公可能都要睇
enterprises.
下佢有冇樓。
Sometimes
讓
when you
樓係
decide
變咗
to
一
marry somebody, you
個
will
大家
first
都
check if she has
攞
owned
嚟
a
衡
property
量
or not. It
財
has
富
become a
衡量結婚
criteria
對象
of evaluating
咁變
one's
咗咧
wealth.
就對樓價嘅調校牽
Therefore,
涉到
any
成個社
adjustment
會。
towards the
咁
property market
我
will
自己
impact
傾
the
向
whole
咧就係
society.
政府喺呢段時間
I think
主力要做好公屋、居
the
屋，
government should
等基
focus on
層
public
有
housing and the
一個
HOS
基本嘅生活保障。
so that
咁
they
至於私人
at
樓
least
宇
the
咧，
basic needs can be ensured.
等
As for the
市場
private market, we
自己
have
去
to
調節。
leave it to the
咁
market.
講咗咁多係宏觀性嘅嘢，都講少少而家嘅市場情
The
況，
first part
因
of
為有
my
啲人
sharing
都
has
想
focused on the
知道而
macro
家嘅情
market,
況。
and now I
咁
would
而
like
家咧
to，switch to talk about the
你
market
都睇得好清
trend
楚啊，
at this
樓價
moment.
就仲
I
係
think
滑
you can all
緊
see it
向
very
下。
clearly. The market price is
原因咧
still dropping.
係心理因素，亦都有現實因素。
But there are many different
現
factors.
實因素就
Some
係
are
香港
psychological and some
嘅
are really
功能，
practical.
因為中美嘅摩擦俾人
Well,
哋制約。
because of the
咁
Sino-US
香港要做金融中
tension,
心
we are
最緊
being
要有錢嚟
limited.
先得
As a
㗎。
financial center,
冇
we
錢
need
做唔到金
incoming
融中
funds.
心嘅。
Without
咁你
funds incoming, we can't
美
become
國
a financial
列咗一個
center.
黑名單，係叫做實體清單，邊
You
啲
know,
公司唔投
the
得，
US
咁
has
啊整下
put
整下
together
咪
a black
越
list.
嚟越多公司唔投得。
And
巴
there
菲
are
特
more and more
買咗比
companies
亞
that
迪，
cannot
好平買
invest.
翻
You
嚟，
know,
佢應該
Mr.
冇咁快
Buffett
賣
has
嘅，因為比亞迪
purchased
而家
BYD.
先至開始即係發圍
I think
佢都
he
未
is
必要
not going
賣，
to
因為
sell
一
it
旦
off
入
that
咗實
soon
體清單咧，
originally. But
美國政府要
because
佢一
it
年內賣
has
晒，
become
咁而家佢
a
趁
member of
即
the
係仲
entity
有
list,
多啲時
the
間
US
開始
government
騰。
required them to
香
sell it
港
out within a year.
冇歐美資金入嚟，
Without the incoming
靠
funds
香
from the
港人。
US
雖
and
然今
Europe,
日我睇報紙，香港係全世界
you know,
平均
in the news
財富
story
最多嘅
today,
地區。
Hong Kong is one of the
但係
locations
始
which
終都係
has
一個城市。
most
要
wealth
我哋支
in
持
the world.
成
We
個
are just a
中國
city. It
咁
is
大，
impossible for
中
us
國
to
啲
support
公司嚟
China.
香港上市，
China
但係
company
中國啲
getting
錢又
listed
唔
in
嚟到
Hong
香
Kong,
港
but the
喎，
funds
因為
of
外匯
China
管制啊
cannot
嘛。
come
雖
to
然
Hong
有
Kong
深港
because
通、滬
they
港
are
通，
controlled,
但唔夠
although
多。
there are
所以
different
我認為，如果
connects
香港
for the
要
financial
做
sector, but this is
金
still
融
not
中心
enough.
嘅話咧，
If Hong Kong wants to
中
continue to
央
become the
政府
financial
要
center,
喺
then the
外
central
匯管制嗰
government
度 都
needs
扭開
to
少少，有
lessen
啲水落
its
下嚟。
control
澳門都
of
俾佢落啦
foreign
嚇
currency.
如果澳門唔
They are
俾
even
佢
allowing it
唱到
for
外
Macau.
匯，唱人民幣，唱到籌碼。 哇！
if they
邊個賭啊？
cannot exchange
所以
foreign currency
你與其
for
俾人哋去澳門賭錢，不如
trips
俾佢嚟
at
香港投資
casinos,
啦。
it would be
嚟香港投
impossible
資
for
嘅
them to
所有
survive.
嘅
If
錢，
you are
起碼
allowing
買
it for
5注股
casinos,
票，
why don't you
賣出
allow
賣
it
人
for the
注，咁
stock
咪俾佢
market
換
as
籌
well?
碼，即係你揸住啲泥馬
it's
要落
just
注
the
先
same
可以換
mentality.
㗎嘛。咁哇，有大陸啲錢嚟，
Losing
外資啲錢
exchange
又會嚟。
control
你
for
而家
the stock
唔
market.
靠，
That's
我
how
以前唔
we
中意
can
靠
secure more foreign
政府
funds.
靠國家嘅，但而
In
家
the past,
香港
I
嗰
hate
700萬
to
人
rely on
好
the government
難
and
買
the
得起
country, but
全
you
國咁
know,
多股
we
票
have
㗎嘛。
7 million
咁
population.
所
It
以
is difficult
放
for
啲
us
錢
to
落嚟，
afford
人民
all
幣
the
都可以
shares
國際化。
and
當
stocks
然
from
好
China.
複雜，但我呢個議題
I
要
know this
考
is
慮。
something very
咁
complicated,
我話
but
樓
this is
價
something
跌嘅
that we
一個
need to
原因
consider.
就係我哋嘅功
Another
能受
reason
到
why
制
our
約。
property
我哋想
prices
聯繫
drop
世
is that
界，
our
但個世
functions
界
are
就
being
成日
limited.
打
We
交
want to connect with the
嚇。
world, but
如
there
果
are
你
so
帶
many
嘅人去買
tensions
樓
all over the world.
哇，知道嗰個屋主原來係嗰個買家嘅殺父仇人。
Well, if you
你帶佢上去
learn
都傾唔埋
that
㗎啦，
the
嗬。咁而家就係
buyers
咁
is
情況啦。
actually
我哋係
the
做
mother
超級
of
聯
the
繫人，
father of
要
the
聯繫
owner,
兩
it
個
would
死
be
對
difficult
頭
for you
喎
to have a deal,
嚇，
right?
咁梗係
This is
難啦。
exactly
咁
the
所以
case
香
of
港
Hong
咧，
Kong. We
樓價
claim
喺
to
呢
be
啲
a
因素下，
super
大家覺
connector,
得
but
香
the
港
two
難發揮，
parties that we target
原有
to
嘅嘢
connect
難發揮，
hate each
所以
other.
價錢
So we
應該
have
回落。
lost
呢個
our
係
regional edge, our
從經
competitive
濟嘅
edge.
角度
That's
去
why
睇，
our property
但係亦都
market
係
is
從經濟
dropping.
角度去
This
睇咧，
is the
香
perspective
港
of the
嘅經
economy.
濟又未去得咁差。
You know, to be
香
fair,
港失
our
業率
economy is not
得
that
3%
bad. Our
啫嘛。
unemployment
啊，
rate
今
is only
年公
around
務員都有人工
3%.
加，
The
普
civil
遍都有人工
servants
加，
have
所以你
a
睇租
pay
金可以
rise.
上升嘅。
That's why
租
the
金上
rent
升
is still going up.
就冇
If
投
rental
資因素
market
影
is
響
still
嘅，都係實用
increasing,
嘅
you
人
know
先
that
租
it
嘅。
is not
所以我
affected
哋
by
係
investment.
有剛性需求嘅城市，
Therefore,
唔
we
係冇
have
剛性需求。
our
我哋有人喺
own
處住，有
demand.
人要租樓，不過呢啲租
There
樓
are
嘅
people
人
who
咧，
need housing. There
驚
are
樓
people
價
who
跌
need
有
to
風險
rent
咧，
property.
寧願租住先，
They
都唔
are
賣，
renting
供得
house
起都唔
instead
賣。
of buying
咁呢樣
house
嘢咧
because they are
係反
afraid of
映
the
信
risk.
心不足。
And
政
it
府如果令
reflects
到
a
信心
lack
翻
of
嚟，
confidence.
或者令到唔使佢
If
令
we
到而家
can
租金回
boost
報率都
people's
升緊嘅，
confidence,
租金上升回報率咪升咯，利息下跌，供樓咪負擔會跌咯。所以
then it will
一
be
邊
more
升緊，一
likely
邊
for
跌
people
緊，
to purchase
遲啲又會
property.
取得平衡。啊，
Soon
而家
it
咧
will
就
strike a balance.
業主唔使急買㗎，有
If
成
you
4
are a
厘息，有啲
homeowner, you
細樓
don't。need to
咁
rush to
我做
sell
乜咁
it
急賣咗
because
佢？
we
賣
have
咗
the
佢，
interest
我
rate
收
of
翻嚟嘅錢，
4%.
想做
If you sell it
10
out
年，
hastily,
唔好話10年，做2年定期啊，銀行都
if
唔
you
收
put it for
你啊。
2-year time
而家
deposit,
銀行咧
the
做
bank will
3
not
個月
accept
嘅
it.
利息
Now
高
the
過做
bank
1年
is
嘅利息
only
嘅。
giving
啊，
you
即係利息
high
啊睇
interest
跌，
rate for
租
3
金啊睇
months
升。
time
咁
deposit
樓
because
價
they
喺咁嘅情
expect the
況下咧，
interest rate to drop,
唔應
but
該係
the
差
rent
嘅。
to go
啊
up.
咁但
In
係
this case, the property
因
market
為
should be
價
doing
錢
pretty
跌緊
well.
已經形
However,
成一個連鎖反應，
the drop
越
of
跌越冇
property
人買，
market
越
price has
冇人買
already，caused a
價錢越
chain
跌。而
reaction.
家咧，如果
Still,
銀
and
行
fewer people are
仲係
willing
好
to
似而家唔
purchase
借錢
houses
咧，
now.
價錢就會跌多
If
啲。
the
所以
bank
銀行咧
continue
唔
to
好
be
淨係
so
睇
rigid in
新做嘅按
non-bank
揭
friendly,
抵唔
then the
抵
market
做。
will
你
continue
如果
to
唔
shrink.
維持到個
The
價
bank
錢，
shall not
你以前
focus
做
on the
落嘅抵押品咧
profitability of the
就
new
一路貶
mortgage.
值。
Because if you
咁政府
cannot
喺呢個時候
maintain
咧
the，scale
我
of the
認為應該
mortgage
出招
market,
嘅。
it will
次按危
see
機之後，
it
聯
will
儲
be
局做咩嘢
unprofitable
咧？
for everybody.
就係買債。
After the second
買，
mortgage
如果佢唔買
crisis,
債，
the Federal
唔買一
Reserve
啲
started to buy debts.
大銀行嘅股票啊，
If they
美
do
國
not
成個
buy
金融
shares
體
from the
制
major
都
bank, then the
崩
whole
潰啊！
financial
咁唔
system
係
in
一
the
間銀
United
行
States
崩
would
潰
have
嘅
collapsed
，Citibank
already.
又唔
We are
掂
not just talking about
American
one
Bank 又唔
particular bank,
掂
it is
，Goldman Sachs 又唔掂，
Citibank,
間間都唔
American
掂
Bank, Goldman
嘅，
Sachs,
啲政府
all back
借
banks.
錢俾佢，幫佢買
So the
債，借錢俾佢，幫佢買股票，
Using that debts, purchasing their
驚仲
shares.
要幫兩間好重要嘅公司，一間叫
They are
房
also
利美，一間叫房
supporting
地
two
美，
very
買按
important
揭證
company
券，
to
即係
purchase
嗰啲
their
叫 mortgage-backed security。
mortgage-backed
咁呢兩間公
security.
司係借錢俾人買樓嘅，咁借咗錢俾人買樓咧，
So
就要
when
揾新
these
錢
company
繼續做生意，佢又要將借咗嗰啲錢咧就打包變成證券化，就賣翻俾聯儲局。咁香港都整咗間咁嘅嘢嘅，叫做按揭證券公司，目的就係有時銀行做唔到嘅嘢咧，佢出嚟做就要收翻銀行先。而家銀行做按揭冇錢賺，佢唔想做。咁如果政府肯出高啲息同佢買翻嚟咧，咁銀行會繼續做。咁呢啲咧政府都要調節嘅。如果肯調節下咧，而家我哋唔係冇實際需要，亦都唔係好似大陸供應過多、建設過多，亦都冇借貸過多，所以市場嘅基本因素係好嘅，市場嘅氣氛係唔好嘅，亦都有一啲值得擔憂嘅地方。但係譬如一旦減息，一旦中國經濟恢復動力，下半年峰回路轉嘅機會係存在嘅。不過呢個時候唔係投資嘅好時機。如果你買咗諗住升值賺錢咧，機會甚低。我就唔贊成呢個時候入市嘅。但係如果你話你有筆錢喺銀行，淨係得閒數下佢嘅啫，嗰種快感唔及你真係買間屋住入去。住舒服啲，日日都舒服啲啊！譬如我咁樣，頭先講70幾歲啦嘛，我都75，踏入76啦。咁我如果有筆錢，又未有樓，梗係早買早着啦。買咗唔知住得幾多年，早啲買咪早啲住。如果你用嘅話咧，你就唔考慮咁多升唔升值㗎啦。如果你係用咧，你唔使考慮佢升唔升，啱唔啱用，住咗落去開唔開心。咁如果咁嘅角度你買咧，我覺得都仲可以考慮嘅。咁我噏耐咗添。講住呢度先。
我諗好多朋友都想同阿先生對話。好，多謝曬先生。咁啊，大家傾偈之前呢，我哋專登揾咗兩位
Before having a dialogue, we have invited two guests to have conversations with Mr. Shih. The first one is a surveyor, Mr. Incu-Lab.
喂，阿師兄，好耐冇見啦！
好耐冇見。
Mr. Shih, long time no
我先
see.
講我嘅觀點，咁啊，再向阿先生講我觀
ask you
點
some questions.
就係咧，最近一直講呢個香港樓價同大灣區趨同。
Recently, we are talking about matching our property price with those in the Greater Bay Area.
深圳差唔多有呢個
趨同啊，冇可能
It is impossible.
我就
Well, there are people who
我
are
就
talking
講一樣
about
嘢，我
this.
觀點咧就係
My take is that
香港咧係要做好一國兩制。
Hong Kong needs to perform well under one country system, especially in our different areas with the Chinese cities. We need to be open in our politics and culture so that we can attract talent. We have to be different. That's why our property market cannot
因為我真係嘅，我有最近咧有
with
個
those in the GBA area. Sorry, I need to take a seat.
我最近咧前幾日就同有個朋友傾偈。
A few days ago, I shared with a friend. He was a businessman. He was hiring MBA in
就
Shenzhen.
點解咧？因為而家好多國內朋友外國讀書咧，就美國經濟唔好啦。
The economy in the U.S. is not performing well. Therefore, a lot of Chinese students are returning to China from the States.
大鑊喺邊度咧？
And my friend would like to hire an MBA. Therefore, he was doing it in Shenzhen.
個交通網絡完全
You know,
方便。
the transportation is very convenient. The monthly salary is only 8,500
就
in
出咗一個問題
Shenzhen.
啦。咁嗱，我所知啦，而家有啲
As
朋
far
友咧
as I know,
就係佢住喺深圳，搭
there are people who live in
九鐵即係港
Shenzhen.
鐵啦， 過嚟香港翻工，咁大致上1個鐘頭嘅交通係得嘅，1個星期多啲啦。我真係識一個，即係識咁嘅國內外國讀書、美國讀書翻嚟嘅。咁所以咧，呢個真係一個，所以有一啲講者講到話咩，即係香港同深圳樓價趨同呢個問題咧係存在嘅。但係我又唔覺得咁悲觀，我就覺得係要即係做好一國兩制，令我哋產生呢個咁樣嘅令到我哋有優勢嘅地方。咁我想請事實嗱，頭先你講到有兩種有同意嘅，你就香港人信心唔夠咁呢個你講多幾句，同埋你係鬧香港規劃師啊嘛，喺小弟有規劃師陰公。我都同意咧，我哋政府嘅規劃師嘅朋友咧係好多局限，咁所以香港有啲規劃我都覺得係做得唔好嘅。咁啊，希望將來做好啲，我唔代表到局會啦嚇，只能講少少個人意見。
我認為香港嘅樓同大灣區嘅樓拉近就一路發生緊嘅，因為中國嘅經濟發展得好快，經濟發展得快，樓價亦都發展快。如果你10年前買咗深圳樓咧，升咗幾個開，10年前買香港樓嘅升幅都有限。所以佢係拉近咗。但係如果你認為一國兩制仲有價值存在嘅話咧，就冇可能佢同我哋吹同嘅喎，除非佢係用翻我哋香港一樣嘅制度，或者香港用翻佢一樣嘅制度。中國政府保留香港行資本主義制度，有信息流通，有外匯流通，有一定嘅自由度，有一定嘅人權保障。
human rights protection, etc. The purpose of doing that is not for the Hong Kong people to have a smoother transition from the British government to the Chinese government. It is for this system to connect easier with the world, because we are talking about two drastically different systems. One is capitalism, the other is communism. Therefore, I believe that Hong Kong needs to maintain one country, two system and a capitalistic system. If you match your market price with China, then the environment needs to be similar. And only then our price can be matched. If our systems are different, then we are only talking about one particular connection point.
唔算好認同而家太積極同大灣區接軌嘅。當然我知道呢個國家嘅政策，但係香港應該保留自己嘅特色啊嘛。香港啲後生仔去大灣區都有冇競爭力咧？我覺得冇，因為政府仲要補貼佢唔知2000蚊。
has competitiveness if they work in the Greater Bay Area. They are still counting on the subsidies from the government. If there is no subsidies, they can't even survive there. If that is the case, how can they live there?
我頭先話80年代、90年代好多工業就北移。
I said that a lot of factories are moving north.
一個就後繼無人，我識好多做廠嘅。第二代唔肯再做廠啦，
maybe the second generation of the family are unwilling to do or to continue the family business. And even if they are willing, they can't compete with the new generation of the entrepreneurs in China.
嗰類型嘅，哇，做乜都掂嘅喎，做家電又得，做手機又得，做車又得，咩大陸啲電動車嗰幾間廠啊，咩理想啊、小鵬啊，嗰啲原本做咩同我差唔多嘅，喺網上賣二手車嘅喎，賣下二手車話識整車喎，哇，整出嚟又似模似樣喎。咁你真係嚇死啲西方嗰啲㗎嘛，所以我哋而家香港人上去唔夠爭嘅。我喺香港都做得唔錯，喺大陸都曾經唔錯，而家俾人打到趴喺度啦。我都唔係好肯認輸嗰啲人，都要認輸啦。 唔夠人砌就唔夠人砌
I
啦
am really not
咁
competitive
你
enough
香港人
compared
你
with them.
去點樣砌咧？人哋都唔睺你
As Hong Kong people,
即係
how
你去
can you
打工，
compete
人
with
哋
them?
唔睺你。
The
你去
bosses
競
that
爭，我唔見有
are
幾多個真
interested
係
in
爭得出
hiring
嚟。
you. I
即係
can't see many
最近
successful
早幾年
cases
間，
if
我哋
we
乜都
are
香
to
港啊，
compete
香港式
them.
管理，香港式
You
大
know,
排檔，乜都
we'll
話香港式嘅。
use Hong
而
Kong
家冇咁
style
多香
as
港
a
式㗎
unique
啦，香港式
brand
已
when
經
we
沒落。
first developed in
所以你去
Shenzhen
到
or
咧
in
要學
GBA,
佢
but it is no
係
longer the case. Mr. Shih,
好。
can I ask you some
呢
questions?
位先生，不如我哋就等第二位嘉賓再傾完先。我哋揾第二位即係年青人
佢
嘅代表。
安排咗個嘉賓一陣，個嘉賓
好啊，依家就翻到俾你，依家翻嚟。等下郭偉成先生，社工嘅專業嘅朋友，
He is a
就年青人
social
嘅心聲。
worker. He would like to speak on behalf
首
of the
先
young
感謝
people.
施生嘅分享，我
First
係
of
郭
all,
偉成，
Mr. Shih,
我喺
thank you
深
for
水
your
埗咧
sharing and
係
cooperation.
做基層工作嘅，
As
所以咧
the
施生嘅
grassroots
講法咧
population
帶
in
咗俾我哋
Central
另一個維度，因為我平時接
Children
都開基層。
has shed
其實啱啱
light
施生咧就講咗一個觀點，係一個香港好有趣嘅現象。就係年輕人咧，一夠18歲咧，除咗換身份證之外咧，就要排公屋。啱啱施生話，如果係佢嘅仔，一巴車落去啊嘛。但係依家好多香港人咧嘅年輕人咧就做一樣嘢，特別適逢咧今日房屋局局長何永賢咧出席論壇嘅時候咧，佢都講咗一個同樣嘅説話，佢話：哇，香港咁多年輕人去排公屋，扭曲咗佢哋人生喎。即係呢個係一個好不正常嘅現象喎，但係香港就正正發生緊喎。咁我試下代入即係啱啱18歲嗰陣時嘅諗法，我自己冇去排嘅。就係係咪一去18歲，大家都有個風氣就話買個保險啦，即係排住先啦，你唔排你就笨啦。第二就係喂，啱啱嗰個投票都講咗啦，哇，真係買唔起私樓喎，咁係咪公屋先係我嘅歸宿咧？有一句網民嘅説話係好搞笑嘅，攞咗公屋咧就係人生贏家，唔知大家會唔會係有啲認同啊唔認同咧？咁我簡單即係問一問我問題，請阿施生咧，即係俾啲建議，有呢種諗法嘅年輕人咧，應該點樣去積極自己人生？即係有咩建議俾到佢哋？另外一個問題咧就係其實現象啊發生緊啊，政府亦都今日阿何局長就話。鼓勵啲年輕人，你唔好排公屋，你要嗰個心頭高啲，你要去置業。咁政府又有啲咩方法，俾到咩建議政府可以扭轉翻呢個年輕人咁扭曲嘅心態咧？唔該晒施生。
我自己咧就認為老師、社工都有一定嘅責任嘅。我見過有啲大學嗰啲老師咧，係鼓勵啲人去輪公屋嘅，覺得有着數，做咩唔輪啊？咁我覺得佢哋咁樣講嘅時候咧，其實佢哋當時咧係心態上咧係反社會嘅。佢係冇考慮到年輕人嘅前途點樣對佢先至帶嚟真正嘅幸福啊，或者佢嘅生涯可以有更好嘅規劃啊。佢哋只係諗住好等你香港政府孭重啲包袱。我可能你話我主觀，我覺得有呢種心態喺度。咁點會讀完大學都係輪公屋咧？香港有機會讀大學嘅人係比以前多咗。但我印象中都係10%個 percent 㗎，我唔知你哋有，我冇攞最新數字。
Right. Well, if you talk about tertiary education, it is actually
有
rather
樓嘅
common.
人啊，
Alright. If you talk about homeowners in Hong Kong, it is only 50% of households.
大學嘅人
A lot of
都
people
買到
who
樓
did
啦，
not
咁
finish
點
college
解
can
自
afford
己
their
覺
own
得自己會
property?
買唔到
Then
樓
as
咧？從
college
統計
graduates,
上，
why
佢
would
哋
you
唔應
think
該
that you
係買
can't
唔到
afford
樓
one?
嘅。
Statistically
如果
speaking,
佢
it should not be the case.
普通人50成買到樓，你讀咗書成為最 top 嗰1成，你都買唔到樓。我早知又唔供你讀添啦，嘥同埋有啲實際上，佢哋只係去輪，係冇日住嘅。因為如果佢出嚟做嘢，做得2年3年之後，已經係冇資格申請㗎啦。咁明知道自己冇資格申請，做咩去輪呢？佢哋唯一嘅功能就係增加輪候冊名單。所以我老實不客氣，我認為呢啲毫無價值嘅行為。
extend the wait list. I believe that this is by no means their way out, and it is meaningless. I don't believe that they really aspire to live in public housing. You said, okay, just now you said that on the internet there is a popular saying, if you will successfully apply for public housing, you are a winner in life. I cannot agree with that. I cannot agree with these kind of teachers and social workers. It's not me.
先理新網上言論。
Okay, this is only something that I read from the internet. All right, the audience over here.
首先咧，好多謝阿施生咁風趣啦。咁其實咧，我有2個問題想問一問嘅。第一個咧就係回應先嚟社工專家講咧話，點解啲人啲後生仔咧會咁快上樓咧？咁我覺得嚟講，上樓啊，人生即係最成功。其實我覺得政府要負責嘅，啲高官啊。點解咧？因為同以前英國佬比較咧，啲公屋越起越豪，越起越靚，同埋包晒所有嘢。同喺市區裏邊重建，咁所以嚟講，你係擺著我咧叻仔都，我都希望咁霸翻間公屋，因為成個制度嚟講，你10幾歲咧就話呢啲係人權，所以你可以申請公屋。嗱，呢啲完全係政府嘅制度做出嚟嘅，新加坡冇呢樣嘢嘅。OK， 第二件事我想問一問史生，因為呢次係innovative 嘅 thinking 啊先，咁我想問問咧，我知道你本身後生嘅時候咧就係屬於叫左傾。係咪先社會主義嘅，即係同我差唔多嘅。咁我想問咧，你現在咧係一個商家啦，以地產為發跡啦，
我都仲有。
咁你係 marketing 嘅，係。我想問一問咧，你究竟支唔支持呢個房屋係一個 basic need？要解決到，還是係當係一個 market 咁樣，即係有個浮動。可唔可以學新加坡？點解新加坡做得到，香港啲高官做唔到？
政府係有責任俾佢嘅市民啊，或者國民啊，克如其分嘅居住嘅環境嘅，即係你如果個地方經濟能力弱啊，好似馬尼拉咁，一般人嘅生活水平低啊，咁政府都好難承擔得起個個居住好好嘅地方，但係香港有能力，香港嘅人均生產力係相對高㗎嘛，咁只不過係政府冇為佢哋提供足夠嘅土地，冇為佢提供恰當嘅政策嚇，即係如果係有足夠嘅土地，譬如我頭先話。俾發展商起樓，起到出嚟樓只能夠賣俾香港首次置業嘅人。咁你發展商咪自己去投咯。以香港普通首次置業嘅人，佢係俾得起建築費兼開發商合理嘅利潤。你有合理利潤俾佢就起㗎啦。政府嘅地多，地價就唔會去得好高㗎啦。咁所以香港係有條件解決居住問題，但係係咪生出嚟？我就有應該有層樓咧，我嗰陣時喺房委會都同佢哋講啊，我話個野獸啊要霸住個山窿啊，都要砌低另一隻先得㗎嚇，唔係如果你話啲富人
some people had to kill another animal in order to secure my cave. There is no such thing as a birthright. Housing is not a birthright. At different stages of development, the government can offer different housing conditions to its citizens. If you want to live better, then you need better infrastructure. If you look at the United States, all its infrastructure are worn out. While people are still fighting for it. In Hong Kong, if people are fighting for a free ride on express railway as human rights, that will be something impossible. I think it is not a must. We cannot take it for granted. We need to have a certain level of productivity. You need to have a certain kind of planning, administration, and that is how the general public can improve the living situations.
我来自大陆，然后
I come from
我的公
mainland
司在
China.
上海，然后我今天
My
很高兴
company
能
is
够
in
听到施
Shanghai,
先生的
and
分
I'm
享。
so
听得懂
glad
吗？
to
听得懂，
listen
但是
to
我不
you.
会
Can
说。
you understand
然
my
后我觉
Cantonese?
得大
Yes, but I can't speak Cantonese.
然后我觉得大家争论的点，其实我都能理解大家看法。其实
I
施政的一
can
个看法是
understand
对
all
的，就
your
是说
point of views.
私人
Mr.
产
Xu,
权
you said something
就
very
像大家
correct.
如果是
That is a
绿房子，大家第一个反应就是住。但是大家如果把房子改成家居，
if
你可以
you
买那种
change
普
the
通的
word
木质的，
housing
但你也可以买
as
智能
your
家居。
household,
但是智能家居和
that means
普通的
you
家居是
can
不一样的
offer
价格，
different
房子也
standards,
是一样
different。
如果说
types
你
of
买更贵的地
household.
方，你就有
It
更好的
can
社区、
be
更好的环境。在
intelligent
大陆那边，
household
那么就是相当
or
于它的医
just
疗
a
设
very
施、户
primitive
口都是挂钩
household.
的。
You know,
所以
in
说，其实大
China
家
it
争
is
论
the
的
same.
都有理。
And
但是大家
you
可能的
all
重
made a
点
good
就
point,
是，
but the
可能大家会觉
emphasis
得我
are
们有争执，
different.
但是大家核心都是一样的，都没有错。
It
然后
seems
我
to
想问的一
be
个问题就是，我今天来
differences
这
in
里
our
想
point
听
of
的就
views,
是
but
说，
I'll
香港的
sure
优
you
势
would
发展
say
以及转型。
that
当时我是
just
想
now
听一
you
听，就是
mentioned
香港
about
房屋
the
房产业的
competitive
转
edge
型
and
能
the
够有
transformation
什么
of
新的不一样
And
的？
my question
因为
is
在
what
大陆
are
来
some
说有一
new
个
or
问题，我不知道大家
alternative
有没有注意过，就是
possible
大家
innovative
看到的
way
就是
for Hong
房
Kong's
地
housing
产
sector?
房价很
In
高，但是你要
China,
知
we
道
have
房地
high
产拉动了中
property
国很多产业
price. We have
很
to
多
be
农民
aware
工，
that
虽然
the
他们没有
property
五险一金，但是
market
他们凭
has
借着在
provided
房地产这个行业
drive for
把自己
many
3个孩子
other
培养到大学。
sectors. You know,
特别
even
是
for
现
the
在房地产
peasant,
那么
they can make
糟糕的情
money
况下
out of the
其
property
实对
market
很
and
多人来
support
说，他
their
的生
three
存就变
children
得
to go to
很糟糕。
college. With the current situation,
内
because the
地
property market is
很
shrinking,
大
it
的问
becomes
题
very
呢
difficult for them
是
to
过
make
度
money
开
elsewhere.
发。
You know,
你
China has
开
been
发
overdeveloped.
出来的房子已经超越了社会的需要。
I mean that the
你
property
没
that you
有
developed
及
has
时
already
叫
exceeded the
停，
demand,
其
and
实
you
应该
did not call for
5
its
年
stop
前就应该叫停了。
in time.
地方
It
政
shall
府
be stopped
责任
5
最
years
大。
ago. The
如
local
果
government
地
shall
方政
be
府不把
held
土地批
accountable.
出来的话，
If the local government
恒
did
大就没有
not
机
sell
会
out the
过
land,
度借
it
贷
is。very likely that there
所
will
以
be no
我认为呢，
overdevelopment.
现在
Therefore, I believe
出现的问题就是已经超越
the problems that they
人口的
have
需
is
要，
that
超越
the
经济
supply
发
of
展的需要
housing。has already exceeded
但
the
是
need of
为
the
了
population and the
经
need of
济
economic
能够
development.
不断的运作，就不断的去投的
For
话，
the
就做成现在
if you
资源
continue
错
to
配。
invest in the property
你
market just
把
because you want to
这
give
些
a
钱
boost
投
in the
进去，
economy,
建了一
then
些
it will certainly
没
cause
有
problems.
机
And
会
that is what we
用
see
的
now.
房子。
You are doing
那
a lot
投
of
进去的
investment
钱的
into
价值就没
properties
法
that
发
is
挥出来
impossible to be
资金
and
就
the
被困
value
死了
of。
所以农民工 没有公开，
will
是因为
not
之前
materialize.
开了太多，你现在没办
People
法，
are
只
out
能
of
够
job
慢
now.
慢
It
的
is
去
because
消
they
化
are overworking.
啊。
You have no
这个
choice
是
but to
我
spend
自己
time
的
and
看法。
allow
香
it
港
to
就
be
没有这个
digested.
问题
This is。my
香港
take.
我们
It is not the
现
case of
在
Hong Kong.
空置率只
In
有
Hong Kong,
4%
we only
多
have
一点。
around
是相
4%
对
of
小的
vacancy rate,
相
so
对
it's
健康的。
relatively low and
但是
relatively
内地
healthy.
呢，有些
For
地方
China,
是空置率，他们不统计空置率，他们只是 统计库存量，库存量就是卖不出的才算，卖出去没有人住的不算。卖出去没有人住，其实资金也被困死，没有产生经济效益。
There will be no economic value. Sorry, this audience is not speaking to the mic. Sorry, the audience is not speaking to the mic.
我相信大家要面对现实，我们根本不需要这么多人做开发商，也不需要这么多人做建材那现在之前错了，我们只能够痛苦的去面对，没法再错下去。当然，你说我们现在再去建一些更高档的房子，让人家搬到一些更好的房子里面去，那经济就可以又动起来。但是社会的资源有很多地方都需要投的。你投到这里已经过度投资的地方，就会造成浪费。投资房地产是不是中国最需要的呢？做房地产，可不可以使中国可以更容易跟美国较量呢？没有用的嘛。所以我认为现在我们要面对现实。就不需要这么多人做开发商，也不需要这么多人做地产代理，所以我把我公司也砍掉了，砍掉了70%左右。
有冇邊位朋友有問題
Anyone else？
係，好啊，問啦。
施生你頭先講就係如果大陸啦，大陸啲人嚟之後咧，佢哋可以買啲3、4樓，係未來啊嘛，咁70咧就可以俾香港人買。如果你係
唔係大陸人30%，所有香港人入邊最 top 嘅呢個係政府同埋社會嘅編排，但我就認為咧，香港人一生中都有機會買一層港人首置房。咁佢可以唔買咪去私人市場同人哋比拼咯。唔係，都係香港人為主，國內人喺咩地方多咧？新盤。豪宅國內人多，但係一般嗰啲 mass market 即係嗰啲大眾嗰啲市場咧，都係香港人為主嘅。
最後嘅問題其實係問未來香港房地產發展同人才嘅政策會唔會掛鈎咧？
而家都有少少掛鈎啦，但係呢啲掛鈎咧就係以前阻你，而家唔阻你咁解啫，就冇輔助到。我話香港政府喺而家呢個情況咧，應該係出手扶持下地產嘅。因為我頭先話政府又未為低地價作好準備，我哋嘅商業社會亦都未為低地價作好準備，所以喺呢種情況下呢，與其俾地產一次過崩盤跌落底，不如俾佢維持喺一個適當水平，然後作調整。即係我哋內地推3條紅線嘅時候啊，我當時話一推落去就散㗎啦，但係冇人肯提醒領導人咁結果咪推落去咪散咗咯。咁而家你點解要等佢死咗先慢慢救咧？你等佢。而家即係吊住佢條命，慢慢調整，咁啊破壞力少啲咯。所以我認為香港咧就冇大陸嗰個問題過度興建。嗱，香港喺 80年代一年起3萬個單位，而家我哋一年起1萬零個單位嘅咋。
Nowadays we only completed 10,000 of units in a year. In the past, we have 80,000 new homes per year. So our output is actually reducing. We don't need to worry about not having enough home supply. When the talents come, when the elites come, they might be able to afford it, right? Well, I am quite a liberal. I believe in free market. If they are talents, they will have high income. They need no one to take care of them. Just now, I said that we have to open doors to everybody. I will not give you any advantages if you are a talent. When you come, you can compete with everybody else. Likewise, the private market. And you can, well, I would also give you an opportunity to purchase the first-time owner property. Okay, we can take one more question. Hello, Mr. Shih. 27 years ago, that is in 1997. At that time, you said something to us as a staff at Centaline. You said that we have already enjoyed good times for many years. It's time for us to suffer. That was the time of the Asia financial tsunami, and at the edge of the turnover in Hong Kong. It feels like we are being hit by a huge wave. What do you believe that the market continued to increase from 1991 to 1997, and do you believe that we have to suffer for at least 6 years, and it continued until year 2003? From year 2003, we see France increase for 20 years. We see the bullish market for 20 years. Will you repeat the same sayings? Do you think it is time for us to suffer again? Do you think we will suffer market loss for another 20 years?
嗱，我自己覺得咧，呢升呢20年咧。
We see a market increase for 20 years. I think quite a proportion of it is because China has entered into a mega trend. After Opium War, China has been on a downward trend, but in the past 20 years, the economy of China has bounced back. Without that, if we are only counting on Hong Kong, we would not maintain an upward trend for 20 years.
However,
if you look at the diplomacy and economy of China, it is as if it is China is at a new transition now. China is at the edge of great changes. Which has caused some unpredictable factors or some hidden threats. Therefore, the critical reason for the property market in Hong Kong to bounce back is for Chinese economy to restart. We need to see such high-speed development in Hong Kong economy. That is the only way to support Hong Kong property market as before. The tension between China and the state will be here for quite a period of time. That's my belief. After the opening up of China, the pathway of China is no longer the same. The pathway that it has taken since the 80s are now being reviewed. Therefore, there are quite a number of variables in the situation. I belive Hong Kong is still a city for China to maintain and to see its full potential develop. Perhaps we need to go through some ups and downs before we can find our way forward. So it is a period for us to suffer.
物業，我會攞嚟作為
At a time such as this, we will purchase property for self-use and to take it as
物業
one of the many in my asset
一個
portfolio.
組成部分。
It is
因為
only
而
one of
家
the many
世界
components.
嗰個金融體制咧係
The financial
好
system in the global
多
market
漏洞啊、
is full of
危機
loopholes
啊、處
and
理得唔好咧，
crises. If
貨幣
any
系
one of
統
them is mishandled,
出現崩潰嘅機會存在，
it
所以
is
我
very
會
likely for the
喺
whole
個資
system
產
to
組合
collapse.
入邊
Therefore,
有
in
一
my
啲係
asset
實物
portfolio,
資
I
產，
will
包括物
maintain some
業啊、
physical
黃金
assets,
啊嗰
including
啲，
gold and
就唔會
property.
淨係
I
滿
would
足於
not
揸住張
be
資產證明
satisfied
書。
just to have a
咁咧
certificate
就
of
如果
store
淨係得
or
資產證
any
明
other
書咧
products.
就好危
If all I
險咯。
have is a piece of paper, it will be quite
因為我哋時間都有限，
dangerous.
其實都
Sorry,
咁
we
大家咧
are
陣間咧
running
都
out
可以
of
食
time.
嘢同阿施
Do
生
feel
傾下
free
偈
to
嘅，
enjoy the
咁今
refreshment
日
and
多謝阿
continue
施
to
生
chat
即係
with
同
Mr.
我
Shih. Thank you very much
咁
for
臨尾都有少少
your
報告
time
嘅。
today.
係
I have
喺今日
some
咧，其實我哋活
announcements.
動咧都有啲成本嘅，咁即係我哋都歡迎大家去捐獻俾我哋，繼續支持我哋。我哋有個奉獻箱喺後邊嘅，咁大家即係可以繼續去支持我哋啦。咁另外，我哋影翻張大合照先好唔好啊？大家可以坐低喺度都得㗎啦。
Remain in your seat. Let's have a group photo.
咁大家望住電話就得㗎啦。
So please look at the lady over there. Ready? 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3.
好，
Thank you.
臨尾咧都有少少嘢想大家幫我哋做嘅。咁我哋有個問卷調查
We
嘅
have
喺
the
度。
questionnaire.
咁即係希望大家都可以即係嘟個 QR code 去即係俾翻啲意見我哋啦。咁大家可以攞你嘅手機出嚟，嘟咗個 QR code 先。
Please scan the QR code.
跟住裏邊有啲問題問大家㗎啦，咁大家可以喺裏邊即係俾啲意見我哋咁樣啦。
Share with us your
我俾
feedback.
2分鐘大家好唔好
I
啊？
will allow 2 more minutes for you to fill in the questionnaire.
麻煩大家就攞個手機嘟咗個 QR code。
可以，我哋同施生
可以陣間先，
陣間先係嘛？好啊，好啊。
先如果俾錢你俾邊個？
我哋嗰度有個奉獻箱嘅。
好啊。
係啊。
問下 Incu 係你哋個 Incu-Lab 係，因為其實我想做個 startup， 係想做房地產科技方面嘅，所以想問下點去有啲參加你哋。
不如我 WhatsApp
好啊。
因為我好似平時你係咩名？
好似係加咗你哋。
係。平時我 send confirmation 都係嚟㗎。你收到我 confirmation？
因為你哋之前係咪本來要搞一個乜嘢創業嘅早餐？我加你啦，不如。
97901807。
9790。
1807。喺呢度。
OK，冇問題。我問你啊。
好，大家填完個問題未？差唔多。OK，好，唔該晒。今日嘅會，即係我哋個節目都正式結束啦。大家仍然可以留喺呢度食嘢飲嘢，大家傾下偈，同阿施生傾下偈咁樣嘅。多謝大家。